Ron Johnson from Wisconsin is here. Donald Trump's pick for vice president of the United States. Senator, how does that sound?
Good morning, Mike. How are you doing? I'm doing well.
I'm doing really good. What do you think? If you get the vice president nod, what do you say, Senator?
Well, first, it'll never happen. You wouldn't want to pick me if you want to have a Republican Senate. So just doesn't work.
Oh yeah, good point. Oh, bummer. Darn, I didn't even think about that. So you're saying you're out of the running just because you would lose a Republican senator?
If I were picking a running mate, I sure wouldn't pick a Republican senator from a state that would be replaced by probably a Democrat.
Really? Why? That makes sense. But why the Democrat? Why would you?
Well, we have a Democrat governor, and so you resign from your office, and then that Democrat governor gets to appoint somebody until an election's held, and then all of a sudden you have an incumbent, and it gets to be more difficult to beat an incumbent. So it just doesn't make sense.
Oh man, that's a bummer.
But I appreciate the
I got excited about it. Yeah, I was thinking about it the last couple of days. I was like, oh, that'd be great. And you just you really rained on that parade.
Sorry about that. I have a tendency to do that. Not the most uplifting character sometimes.
All right, let's chat. Let's do first things first. TikTok bill going to the Senate. Is that all the talk of the Senate right now, or are you guys like, we'll get to it eventually?
Well, it came up pretty fast in the House. Obviously, President Trump tried to get them to divest of their Chinese interests. A number of years ago, he's blocked by the courts, and I guess this has been simmering, and the House all of a sudden took it up, and we're getting asked these questions. I will say I'm starting to study the issue now. I'm reading arguments on both sides, and I think both sides have some pretty good arguments. So, I certainly hope we don't rush to a vote, because I think there are legitimate concerns on both sides.
Yeah, I think that's right. That's fair. I don't feel that that's a dodge at all. I feel like that. We opened up the phones to it the last 2 days, and most people are against the ban, which is like weird, right? I was surprised by that. So there's a lot going on, and I look forward to you reading through all the details of it as well, because that's where that devil always is. In general, though, what is your policy and stance about just divestment from China and how you view China as a peer around the world?
Well, first let's talk about my stance on social media. I think parents need to be far more careful in what they allow their children to do on social media. So it starts with parental control, which unfortunately we don't use enough of in this country. We really need stronger families, stronger parental control from that standpoint. When it comes to China, there's no doubt about it, they're an adversary. They have a game plan. They're flooding America, for example, with fentanyl. They're stealing our intellectual property. Remember, it was President Biden, I think because he's compromised, one of the first things he did is he canceled the China Initiative, which was the Department of Justice program to investigate and crack down on Chinese theft of intellectual property on college campuses. Why would he do that? Okay? And so I have no doubt that they are using TikTok not only to surveil Americans, but also to poison the public sphere. So no, I think TikTok's a very serious concern. But I also say, because I'm reading the arguments against TikTok, and I'm going, you could really just change the characters and recognize we talk about the U.S. government putting a strong arm to Twitter and other social media companies to crack down on what they call misinformation, which I would call the truth during COVID. So it's not exactly like our federal government is lily pure when it comes to allowing free speech.
What? And listen, I'm a simple man, Senator. And I was like, I'll read this bill. And, it's like long and complicated. Why can't a bill say, we ban TikTok? I don't know. This bill could be like a paragraph. Why does it have to be so complicated where you could like read inside, the nuance of this and could be applied over here, blah, blah, blah. Why can't it be simple?
Well, we also have the CFIUS process here that analyzes when foreign investors want to come and invest in a company. I don't know why you can't tweak that to have them, that same kind of panel take a look at, is this foreign investment, is this appropriate? Does this represent a national security risk? As opposed to, you normally do it on the front side of these things. But there are other ways, I think, of skinning this cat. I think that's what we need to take a look at. I think one of the more disturbing aspects of this bill I'm just reading about is it grants President Biden a fair amount of authority to target companies for divestiture or other type of actions. I don't think you want to give this president, or maybe any president, that kind of authority. So again, you have to be very careful. It's kind of like the old immigration bill. I guess it's sounded good to some, never sounded good to me, but there were some real problems with that bill where you actually weakened a serious president's authority to secure the border. So again, the devil's in the details. You got to look at these things long term.
Yeah, let's take that pivot as well. I think the last 2 days we've been talking about it. We've been taking it just from more of a philosophical, like principled, big picture approach. Like should this be done? Period. But I like now it's time to get into those details. Oh, maybe there's other ways to do it as well. I appreciate that. So to take that pivot, Kathy Hochul, governor of New York, was on The View. I'm sure you watched it live, right? Do you watch big fan of The View? You and Whoopi?
I might have missed that one.
Do you even know what The View is? So Kathy Hochul was there, and she said, "Hey, listen, the border used to be a Republican and a Democratic problem. We were all to blame. This is like good false humility here, Senator. We were all to blame. But now it is squarely and wholly a Republican problem."
Wow.
I think they're going to get away with that.
I mean, she's just operating in an alternate reality, a different universe, right? No, President Biden and Democrats, they want an open border. It's obvious. This is what they want. President Trump had the authority. Again, the authority has been weakened. The Supreme Court in 2018 said that current law exudes deference to the president when it comes to the border. Now, there have been some court decisions that have weakened that authority, but even with that weakened authority, President Trump secured the border. Okay? President Biden used that exact same authority to open the border. How many? 90-some executive actions reversed all the successful policy of the Trump administration. He opened the border. And then for 3 years, he and his Secretary of Homeland Security denied that there was a crisis. They only admitted it once Mayor Adams and Mayor Johnson in Chicago and New York started looking at their sanctuary city and realized this doesn't work too good. We can't handle this. This migrant flow is going to destroy our cities. They started making noise, and all of a sudden the mainstream media had to start covering it. That started putting pressure on the Democrats, but not to secure the border. All the Democrats were looking for was political cover. And unfortunately, Leader McConnell entered secret negotiations on a subject where the American people agree with us on, where all we were looking for in any kind of legislation was an enforcement mechanism to force President Biden to use the authority he has to secure the border. We weren't looking for an immigration bill, but that's what McConnell apparently negotiated for us. I think the quote from Schumer in Politico was priceless. He said that, referring to himself and the Democrats, we were playing chess, they were playing checkers, and we're in a lot better position on the border than we were 3 weeks ago. I mean, that speaks volumes. So McConnell gave them the political cover they were looking for, and now Governor Hochul's using it, right? Blaming Republicans for blocking that awful bill that would have been worse than doing nothing, even though the Border Patrol said they support it only because they're drowning. And anything short of 10,000 people a day would be a win for them. They just weren't looking at how that bill weakened a presidential authority by not giving him the discretion that he already had. Gave him the discretion to stop processing asylum claims once we hit 4,000 a day. So again, that weakened his authority. That when Congress comes in and codifies something, the courts will take a look at that. Well, we thought Congress had given him that authority, but they must not have because they're giving it to him now. And then even worse, they take that authority away after 3 years. That bill was so awful. It's beyond comprehension that our negotiators didn't realize what an awful bill they had delivered into our midst.
Who were our negotiators?
It was McConnell. Chris Murphy said it all. He said, no, McConnell's staff was in the room every step of the way. He wrote the bill. So I'll take Chris Murphy at his word. I know inside our conference, we repeatedly talked about, we've got to tie this to Ukraine funding. But apparently McConnell told Langford, no, it's off the table. And Kirsten Sinema confirmed that. No, James never asked for that. So this was masterminded. This was stage managed by Mitch McConnell. He's the political genius that crafted that awful, awful bill that was worse than doing nothing, giving Democrats some political cover. Again, now, I'm hoping it won't work. I mean, to me, it's so obvious who's caused this problem, who wants an open border, who want illegal immigrants to vote, and if not vote, use their numbers to, plump up the census to give them more congressional seats in their Democrat districts. I mean, that's what this is all about. It's about changing the electorate. It's about turning America into a one-party nation.
Yeah, your colleague, the other senator from Tennessee, says that if you estimate 10 million people here, that's 13 extra congressional districts. Amount of people. Jeez. So listen, McConnell's leaving in November, so we can all speak freely now. You've always spoken freely. You've never let that hold you back. But now everyone is free because he's on the way out. What's he doing now? Is he still in power? Like, is he still I know he's technically there, but is he really still wielding power until November?
Well, when you're in the minority, there's only so much damage you can do. He's done the maximum amount during this Congress, which is why I helped lead the effort. Rick Scott ran to challenge him, but we didn't succeed that time. So now what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to lead a process where, first of all, the Republican Conference of the Senate determines what we're about. What are we going to stand for? What are we going to fight for? And, I propose, coming from the private sector, I don't know too many successful organizations that don't have vision and mission statements, where they don't lay out the principles they operate by, where they don't establish annual goals, where the people that work for the organization don't know what their role is in accomplishing those goals and those missions. I mean, that's how successful private sector companies work. That's not Congress. That's not the Republican Conference. So I'm trying to turn us more into a private sector type of successful organization by crafting a mission statement, by establishing principles that we adhere to. And I'm hoping through that process, the leader or leaders will emerge.
Okay, so let's say, hypothetically, this guy named Don Ronson, I don't know, Senator Don Ronson was the new majority leader in the Senate. And he's a real swell guy, handsome, tall, all the great things. What would be a principle of his that you would think is just great?
Well, first of all, the mission statement that I will propose is pretty simple. You have to be for something. So, what we're for is we're for defending life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness, the Constitution, free markets. We're for defending that. But at this point in time, I think the more important part of the mission statement is we must provide an effective counter to the ideology and policies of the radical left that are destroying this country. And let's face it, the Democrat Party now is the radical left. So I think our current mission right now is, as William F. Buckley used to say, stand athwart history and yell, stop. We need to effectively counter. Again, we don't. We get all wrapped up in tactics, these secret negotiations, instead of actually addressing the serious issues. Now, again, I think in general, except for McConnell and secret negotiations, Republicans have been pretty strong at going down to the border, highlighting this as best we could in terms of exactly what a clear and present danger the border issue is, how these military-aged men from China and 150 other different countries are coming to this country, the gangs, the violence, the sex and human and drug trafficking. We've done a pretty good job of that, but what have we done in terms of, I would say, the mutilation of children on the altar of transgenderism, of critical race theory, the indoctrination of our children in our school system? So again, most of this stuff has to be done at a local level, and that's the good news. We can do it at a local level. But I think elected officials here in Washington, D.C. can play a role at least highlighting these issues. We get the TV time. We can effectively counter this far more effectively than we've done in the past. So it is. It's,
I only interrupt you, sir, because we got about 45 seconds. But so if I may, you mentioned that the Democrats are destroying this country. The radical left, destroying this country. That's not just a difference of opinion. You're suggesting they're doing something much worse than have different opinions.
Yeah, isn't it obvious? Again, 6, 7, 8 million people come to this country. We don't know who they are. Military-aged men, possibly sleeper cells, 40-year high inflation, this massive deficit spending. Eventually that debt bomb is going to go off. A war on fossil fuels, the weakness we show internationally, which has caused our adversaries to act. No, it's destroying America. The division they're sowing. They're dividing this country under identity politics, critical race theory, transgenderism. They're purposely dividing this country. That weakens us. That destroys us.
Senator Ron Johnson from the great state of Wisconsin. Give my best to Senator Don Ronson. I really hope that guy can hit the top. You know what I mean? I hope he can be the leader.
Stay well. Take care.
We're bound together. Support him. Thanks, Senator.